Hello and welcome to the Warwick F1 show. You'll notice, number one, we've got cameras. Great, excellent. But also, I'm not Will Kingswood. I'm Jack Rowe, of course, part of Warwick F1 Society. Will's off having a nice holiday. I think he wanted to skip all of the chaos we're going to talk about today. But I can't do this alone, of course. I've got to have a representative from Raw with us. So we've got Will's Raw buddy with me, Chinmay. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. I think I just managed to recover, but the things that's just happened so far. I'm looking forward for this.
Yeah, it's been 4 days since the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, but oh my word, it feels like it's been. Somehow it feels like it was yesterday, but also 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right, and we've also got some of my other exec buddies from the Warwick F1 Society. We've got president and almost a regular now. We've got Tom Bicknell.
Hi, how you guys doing? Yeah, not too bad at all.
How'd you find the race?
It was chaos, wasn't it? So we're going to have a lot to talk about today. But no, it was very enjoyable.
Yes, we are. Plenty to talk about. And we've also got my fellow publicity officer, Zieger, as well. First time on the show, I think. Is that right?
Sí. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
How was your holiday? For everyone who's a little confused right now, Zieger's just got back from Barcelona. How are you finding it?
Actually, Barcelona was brilliant. I managed to get my mate who brought his VPN along to try and watch some of the Grand Prix.
How much of it did you catch?
We managed to watch the whole of it using his VPN, but that last moment was like, oh my god. I just basically went to the toilet and there's like, nah.
It was absolute chaos for the last 5 laps of the race. Before we get to that point, though, we've got to talk about all the other things that happened in the weekend. And I want to talk about everything kind of as a whole. I don't want to talk about Max versus Lewis for 2 hours. I'm sure nobody listening wants to hear that either. It gets a bit dull after a while. So we'll start right at the start, and that's before the race weekend even happens. Because the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix this year, as well as not being the same in that we had an incredible title fight on our hands, but it was not the same in that the changes to track. Overtaking a bit poor in the last couple of years. So were you expecting it to improve a little bit, Chinmay?
Yeah, I was just hoping for just slightly better racing. Hopefully that I was just hoping that the new layout just make a couple of adjustments, just allow a little bit more wheel-to-wheel stuff. And I would say it has helped a little bit, but not as much as we expected it to happen.
Yeah, okay. That's what do you reckon, Tom? Do you think it improved the overtaking?
It's hard to say because we didn't see a lot from. So the two main zones that I can think of was just after the long straight where they widened the curve, and then just under the bridge where they made it more of a running turn rather than 290 degrees. And I've only really seen anything from the one just after the long straight, where I don't watch F2, but I watched this weekend, and there was about 3 or 4 dives down the inside that ended in crashes on that turn. So I would say that it's given more of an opportunity for overtaking, but I don't know anything from that one under the bridge because we didn't really see any of it.
It did feel a little different, though. I'm not sure. It's hard to put specifics on it, but this race, maybe it's the cars, maybe it's something. But it felt like there were a little more overtakes. It wasn't quite so much a procession, was it, Zieger?
To be fair, the changes I made was designed to enable the cars to follow each other better, and if you have these kind of changes allowing the cars to follow each other, then at least you have a better chance of getting an overtake done. Well, we saw Valtteri Bottas. It took him I don't know how many how many attempts after his pit stop before he got past Charles Leclerc. In the old layout, it probably would have been a lot more laps.
Yeah, taking a drink at the worst time there. Yeah, it was. I don't know. I think the whole circuit feels nicer than it was before, and it was certainly a lot faster, both on average speed and, of course, the fact that we cut a fair bit of wiggling around, and we're seeing a trend, especially when we look at the Jeddah Grand Prix, towards faster tracks. Do you think that's something you'd prefer, or do you like the tight, twisty stuff, Chinmay?
I mean, to be fair, I think what we're seeing now with these new faster corners, I kind of prefer that because it just looks more impressive with the F1 cards and stuff. And I feel, I mean, just going back slightly, especially with the old layout with the hotel section, I feel that especially the layout slight changes are done there with just stopping all the stop-start stuff, corners. They've kind of really got rid of that sort of like stop-start nature, which is what I like, which is what I really like about this new layout. But then, yeah, it's kind of just to see the car just go flat out in these sort of like twisty corners and just going fast. It's just impressive to watch, really.
Do you think there's a change kind of to all the circuits because of next year's regulations? I mean, are we expecting to see faster, closer side-by-side racing, and then therefore the spectacle can take a bit more of a boost, or do you just think that there's, I guess, not really a change? It's just a coincidence. Say, Tom.
Can you quickly run through the changes for next year, like the big changes?
I think they're aiming on making it a lot easier to close the gap, right? I think at the moment, if you're running a second behind someone, there's a 50% loss of downforce. And then next year, it's only going to be about 10%. So that's kind of the main change in the regs.
Right. Because obviously, if it's then becomes easier to follow cars, then the faster corners and the sweeping, like Jeddah, they become a lot more doable. It's going to be easier to pass, I think, and the racing should be better. So hopefully it's not a coincidence that they've planned it out, because it would be nice to see a lot better racing at some of these tracks where they've been, typically boring, or they, could potentially be.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say Abu Dhabi is normally pretty boring. I guess we'll get on to some actual on-track action then, other than the F2 races that we had throughout the weekend. And I don't know if you guys watched the F2, but it was nice to see Oscar Piastri crowned. So we'll get to the actual F1, and probably action really kicked off in Q2, right? We saw a number of things, but I want to start with kind of the queue of cars that we had in that final sector. Zieger, do you remember seeing that carnage there? Because it's normally be a fair bit of chaos, but it was just mental, wasn't it?
So unfortunately, I did not watch it live on TV, but I did manage to catch it on the radio. I believe that was where Max Verstappen flat spotted his mediums.
Yeah, so we'll go on to that in a minute. I've chosen the wrong person to ask about this. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
How about you two guys? Did you watch qualifying, Chinmay and Tom?
I was on and off. I wasn't really. I didn't watch quality. Focus completely on it. But I mean, I did catch up with the highlights as well. But yeah, I mean, this whole gentleman's agreement, I think, needs to be thoroughly revised for next year, I suppose. Especially if you're Sebastian Vettel.
Yeah, he wasn't happy about that, was he? And I think it's been a season-long thing, right? All the way back to Bahrain, we saw Nikita Mazepin pushing his way in front. We've seen issues for, I think Stroll missed the timing to get to his final lap in at one race. I can't remember what race. Do you think that needs to change, Tom? If there needs to be like something official, or is it all right as it is? It's just gamesmanship and quality.
It's kind of, I think there's not that many ways of changing it, to be honest. If they could come up with something, I think that'd be great because you get absolute carnage in. I don't remember what year it was. Do you remember that Brazil qualifying where it was absolute chaos, and then about 3 cars got their laps in Q3? It just ends up a bit like that, and it's. I don't know. I don't like it personally. If they could do something about it, I think that'd be ideal.
Yeah, it's a difficult solution though. One person who might have suffered, I'm not sure if that was because of Q2, but certainly, the carnage at the end, certainly probably expected to get through to Q3 was Pierre Gasly, who ended up P12 on the grid, medium tyres trying to squeeze through on there. He said afterwards that oh no, I can't remember if that was him or not, but he did try and get through on mediums, and his teammate was able to. So how much risk should the teams be putting on getting through? How much of an advantage is it, Zieger?
To get through on mediums. So on paper, it was considered like like after Q2, with their positions would have like this strategic advantage. Because yes, Red Bull can get off the line quickly, but Mercedes, knowing their pace, they can catch Max Verstappen on those worn soft tires. But unfortunately, I think going on mediums these days is pretty much like if you're on the midfield teams, it's pretty much a risk because if you mess it up, but then again, like even if you mess it up, you could still have like a free tire choice. So going on the medium could be a blessing and a curse at the same time, depending on who you are.
Yeah, there were some drivers that ended up on soft tires that maybe perhaps didn't want to be, namely Max Verstappen, who in Q2, going into turn 1, going for another run, I think, and just locked up on those tires, and of course then he had to go out on softs, try and set a faster lap and start on those. But how much of an issue was that? I mean, of course, in hindsight, we know how the title was decided, but did that feel like in Q2 like a knockout blow for Max, Chinmay?
Not necessarily, I'd say, because I think at the end of the day, with the soft tires, it would hopefully given Max much more grip off the line, and on top of that, he was able to fire up his tires more and be able to at least get a much better start than Lewis. And then on top of that, can they just go full aggressive strategy against Lewis? So probably at that time, not too much of a big deal. I mean, mediums would be a lot more comfortable strategy-wise, but then starting on the softs isn't all too bad. I don't think it was a knockout blow that time.
Yeah, it was interesting because I think most of us expected Mercedes to be the faster team, like over the weekend, and eventually it turned out that was the case. But in Q3, we had some shenanigans, right? What do we see there? We saw the old teamwork come into play. Do you remember this, Tom?
Are you referring to the little toe that Perez gave Max?
The little one, yeah.
Because I asked someone the other day when we were watching the race. It might have even been Chinmay, actually. I can't remember. And I was told that it only gave him about less than a tenth, probably. I don't know how accurate that is, but
that is surely not. I mean, it was because how much time do they gain with the DRS open behind someone? It's a fair amount, isn't it?
not sure on the timings, but it's supposed to give you a certain percent, and it's a fairly high percent of extra speed, 6 miles an hour or something like that.
Yeah, something like 15 kilometers an hour, which almost tend to about 10 miles an hour more, which does give a distinct advantage compared to the person in front. But yeah, I think I probably would have given a tenth or two at least, probably, with that toe that Perez gave to Verstappen.
But then when you think about it, even if Perez's toe had given him, say 0.3, then he still is qualifying ahead of Lewis there. So I don't know if Bottas had given Lewis a toe, maybe it would have been different, but I think it was fairly conclusive in the end.
Yeah.
It was a significant winning margin for Max in qualifying. But that wasn't the only surprise that we had from qualifying. We saw as well Norris on the second row, third position for him. And McLaren had been absolutely nosediving for the last 3, 4, 5 races. So was it a bit of a surprise for you to see him there, Zieger?
I think a lot. Looking at the results, like a lot of it was like just purely down to bad luck, and at the same time, Ferrari have also got their engine package as well. So it wasn't really much. So unfortunately, I think their loss was like outside their control, and here's the thing, like with Ferrari, when they introduced the engine package upgrade and seeing how it felt, they were they can actually go faster, whereas like McLaren have to rely on Mercedes for their engine, and so Ferrari being fast was just the way it is. But it was definitely nice to see Lando on the second row after. I think that Sochi. I think that race in Sochi did really hit him up hard, but the way he's bounced back from that Sochi heartbreak, like this, it takes so much resilience to like keep on going. Most drivers would be after that heartbreak would just nosedive after that. And if you look at his stats this year for Lando Norris, he's finished in the points in all but 2 of the races this season.
Is it that many? I didn't realize it was that many. It feels like in the last 3 or 4 races he's had big trouble, but yeah, no, a good return to form just in time for what was going to be an intense battle for P5 across the weekend. We had other surprises in qualifying as well. Perez in P4, which not so much of a surprise, but Bottas all the way back in P6. Were you expecting Mercedes to be slow this weekend, Chinmay?
No, I was expecting Mercedes to absolutely blitz Red Bull this weekend, bearing in mind that this is traditionally a Mercedes stronghold as well. And plus, with the new engines, and Bottas had his reconfigured to try and match Lewis's Brazil specs as well. I kind of expected Mercedes to be a lot faster in qualifying. Obviously, it would turn in the race that Mercedes were quicker than Red Bull. But then, yeah, the qualifying, it was a bit of a surprise to see the gap between Red Bull and Mercedes, to be fair.
Yeah, we've got plenty of memes about Bottas's engines as well. Yeah, it's a tricky one for Bottas, and he's had I think it's fair to say, a mixed time at Mercedes, just as a whole. He's moving to Alfa Romeo, of course, this year. Would you have expected a better send-off from him, Tom?
You'd like to have thought so, because P6 in quali, and then when did he finish in the race? Was it P6 as well?
Yeah, I think it was P6 as well.
Yeah, you'd like to hope that he would have been up on the podium, really, particularly as we expected Mercedes to be really, really quick this weekend. Potentially a 1-2, but obviously that's not the case, and it kind of sums up his time at Mercedes, really. We've expected a lot from him, and a lot of the time he has delivered. Winning in places like Russia fairly consistently, but generally his time has been a mixed bag, and I think that showed this weekend.
Yeah, it was a shame for him. We're going to get on to the actual race, I think, now. So I'm going to go around and do the classic thing of asking where you rank the race from 1 to 10. Chinmay, start with you.
I'll probably give it a 7.5 out of 10 because there was a good chunk of the race that wasn't actually that fun. And yes, there were highlights, especially with the whole Perez and Hamilton halfway with that lap 20 or something like that. And then obviously the whole stuff at the end of the race. But then as the whole in the race in the whole, there wasn't too much that happened. So I'll probably give it very 7.5, 8 out of 10 for that. I won't lie.
Zieger, what do you reckon out of 10?
I reckon, like, I wouldn't say it was a fun, like a fantastic race. But at the same time, at least it wasn't Abu Dhabi in the last few years. So I definitely give this a 7, just because like whatever happened on the track, it definitely got people engaged rather. Because like every time after Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, people was keyboard warriors go onto their account saying, "Oh, what on earth is this race?" It was basically a snore fest. Well, thank God this wasn't once. And I think like in terms of racing strategy, there were also like interesting calls between Mercedes and Red Bull, so that definitely spiced things up as well. It's a good one, but it's not like one of those. It's nowhere near a classic. So 7's reasonable for me.
Okay. What about you, Tom?
I think you guys are being harsh, to be honest, because I would say that the good bits, i.e. lap 1, Perez versus Hamilton, and then the last 5 laps outweighs all the boring bits in it. Because we could have had another championship bore like in 2016, where there was minimal actually going on. So I want to say like 8.5, 9.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go to the total opposite end, and I'm going to say, I'll get onto this later, but I've got a reputation for whining about the stewards. And normally I think whining about the stewards is great because it doesn't affect things too much, but I was not happy about the way this race ended. So I'm going to go, and to be fair, it was boring as heck for like 35 laps in the middle. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 10. Which we'll see. All right. So let's talk about the race, shall we? We'll get on to what we're actually here to do, and the race start. Verstappen on pole, Hamilton second. Verstappen meant to be getting off the line a little bit better on those soft tyres, wasn't he, Chinmay?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was a bit of a shocker, to be fair. I mean, Lewis just flew from the start. He just walked away from Verstappen pretty much in the beginning, and then just trying to see Verstappen, even and the fact that Lewis could at least maintain a gap in front of Verstappen despite Verstappen being on soft tyres. That was a bit of a shocker, to be fair. I won't lie.
Yeah, what do you reckon, Tom? Was it? What was the reaction like? You're in the pub with us, weren't you? But what was it like there?
I think it was a fairly even split between people that wanted Verstappen to win and people that wanted Hamilton to win. So it was absolute chaos from the off, basically, because Hamilton's reaction time, they come up with that little graphic. I want to say it was 0.35 for Verstappen and 0.25 for Lewis or something like that. So he got away quick. And then, like Chinmay said, he basically walked away from there.
Yeah, and it was far from the only incident that happened on lap 1 as well. So we're going to have to get on to the, I think part 1 of 2 of like the stewards are just going haywire. And down at turn 9, the hairpin, Max makes an absolute dive bomb. Was that move on, Zieger? Was that a fair move, or was that him just like being very optimistic?
I think like if Max had taken the inside corner, then he would have got the move done without Lewis needing to take avoiding action. But the fact that that he didn't make the inside kind of meant that Lewis was forced to take like drastic action avoid collision with Max Verstappen, because he knew that if he had a collision, his championship was basically over. So in hindsight, there pretty much was no choice for Lewis but to take the runoff space. But yeah, I mean, him taking the runoff space, I have no problems with that. It's what happened when he took the runoff space is the controversial bit, or something that is of interest, because after that period, he was like, he gained so much time and just pulled away from Max Verstappen. Like, how?
Yeah, I'll poke the bear a little bit more. And how much of that do you reckon, Chinmay, was Max knowing that if he takes Lewis out, if they both crash out, then he's won the championship?
I don't think it was too much. I think Max was just properly optimistic about trying to get that move, because he wouldn't really care about the consequences, because yes, if they both fail to finish, Max would win because of the extra win he's got compared to Lewis. But I think it's just more the fact that he was being way too optimistic in that corner. And then, obviously, just carrying on what Zieger said about Lewis, I did feel he did take a little bit too much advantage, a little bit of an advantage, but it wasn't too much that really was. It really made too much of a difference, to be fair, because Lewis was just that much faster anyway. But yeah, I don't think it was really too much accounting to the fact that failing to finish meant Max winning the championship.
And how about what Hamilton did in reply? Was that justified, Tom? Do you think he should have given the place back? Do you think he should have done a better job of holding tight to the corner? Because it was a little silly, wasn't it? He did. It was very much like, oh no, I have been forced off, and then it was, 2-3 seconds ahead.
Well, see, I was just, as soon as you asked the question, I got the video up on my phone, and I had a look, and he isn't. I can see why he's taken the run off, but at the same time, I feel like he possibly should have given the position back, because he's alongside to an extent, but then as soon as you get into the corner, Max does, he doesn't leave the track, Max, and Lewis isn't alongside at that point. So I feel like he could have done a lot better job at just slotting in behind Max, or conversely, having taken the run off, been asked to give the position back, because then pulling away a second and a half from that, which is not, it's a bit of an optimistic move from Max, but it doesn't warrant Lewis pulling a second and a half on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you reckon, Zieger? Was the stewards correct? Was it Max not leaving the space for Lewis and Lewis avoiding the accident, or should he have pulled in behind and accepted that?
I think for me, I think I'd give the benefit of the doubt to the stewards for this one, for not telling Lewis to give the position back, because I thought for it was like a bit of a racing incident, like two of them had to take drastic action so that they can both continue. As Chinmay said, like Max was being a little bit too optimistic, and for me, like Lewis had to do what he had to do. So for me, like Lewis didn't really need to give the place back.
Okay, I'm gonna try and poke. No, I've already said that. I'm gonna give a hypothetical. Let's say the stewards give Lewis that 5-second penalty. When they pitted, I think the gap was about 7 or 8 seconds, but it comes out behind Perez, which we'll talk about in just a second. Would this have made for a better season finale? You get a penalty, you have to stop in the pit stop, Max maybe gets ahead, and then you have that same incident on lap 53, and then you have both of them pitting for softs, or maybe Lewis pitting for softs instead of Max. I know people are going to talk about the decisions of the FIA on the last call affecting the championship, but would this have affected the championship as well, Chinmay?
I mean, yeah, to an extent they would, because obviously if Lewis, even if it depends on what the penalty they give, to be fair, because if they give Lewis a 5 second for getting an unfair advantage of the track, or they give Max some sort of penalty, because that would be a bit too harsh because he effectively did push Lewis off the track, or if they may just Lewis give the position back, because at the end of the day, that would slow the advantage Lewis has on that race pace, because he is stuck behind Max. Because at the end of the day, you had to follow the whole lap, and then obviously wait for a whole lap to get a DRS again. And at that time, you never know if you stay behind 1 second or not. It doesn't matter. But I think, yeah, it would have made a good championship fight if something did come up penalized or gain the position back or whatever. It would have been a good championship fight then.
Yeah, so we had some hope of having that head-to-head battle throughout the race. When after the pit stop on lap 20, of course, Max had to pit a fair bit earlier. I think he pitted on lap 14 or something with those softs. But Lewis pits, comes out behind Perez on older mediums, and then we have what is probably the best defense of the year, right? Am I right in saying that, Zieger?
I definitely say like have to take out like 7 seconds of his advantage, like that. I mean, people might call keyboard warriors may call it unfair, but at the end of the day, Perez was brought in to Red Bull to play a team game, and this is what this is what I think like credit to Red Bull for like using the teammate situation well here, because at the end of the day, like so basically he reduced the gap advantage from 7 to like 1 second in like the space of 2 laps.
Yeah, it wasn't even 2 laps. It was like barely a lap and a half. What do you reckon, Tom? Was that the best defensive driving of the year?
There's a couple of really good contenders this year, I think, and they've all been on Lewis. So we've got this one. We've got Perez in Turkey. We've got Alonso in Hungary. So I think it is, to be honest.
Yeah. What about you, Chinmay? Yes or no? Best of the year?
I'll probably give the best of this year, because it wasn't just the fact that it was Perez doing fantastic driving and his brilliant conservation of that the battery energy he has from the ERS, but it's not just that it was properly clean, close wheel to wheel racing. It was just so much fun to watch. I'll say even if it wasn't the best, I'll definitely say it was the most fun to watch of the year as well.
And then we had, of course, after that, about 30 laps where nothing happened. I've had a look back at the highlights, and of course they focus on the last 5 laps quite a lot. But at least the YouTube highlights, there was nothing at all in those laps. Can you guys remember anything, or are we straight into the lap 53 incident?
Yeah, it's probably just Kimi retiring because of that brake issue, and I think that's.
Yeah. We'll talk about Kimi. We will do that a bit later. That was sad, to be fair.
Yeah. On the point of like Kimi's retirement. Yeah. Well, I was on the train with me and my mates. Like going to Granollers. On a side note, for tourist guide in around Circuit Catalunya. It's one stop after Granollers, the station for Circuit Catalunya in the when you go into Barcelona. But while we were on the train, when we saw the Kimi incident, me and my mates were like, you know what, Mercedes have messed it up with Lewis, because Red Bull pitted Max Verstappen for mediums, whereas Mercedes let Lewis stay, which we thought was like, what on earth is going on in that Mercedes strategy team?
Yeah, I've remembered the one thing. I knew there's something. There was Russell retiring. I can't remember whether it's Russell or Latifi, but both of them ended up retiring. Sorry, it must have been Russell. Of course it was. We'll talk about Latifi, but that threw the virtual safety car, right? And then Max pitted from hards to another set of hards. I think that was something that happened. And of course, there was that. We almost had the precursors to what we were going to see later, whether Mercedes should have pitted, but eventually they just kind of did the opposite of what Max did again, and held that position. So let's talk about it. Lap 53, Mick Schumacher versus Nicholas Latifi. It's not really as a direct effect of that, but Latifi ends up in the wall. Big incident. What's going on in your head, Chinmay?
Safety car, and it's going to be it's either going to be a boring finish or one epic finish. And it's like, what's going to happen now? That's what it was. It's just, to be fair, it just got really tense at home for me.
How about you, Tom? Was the heart rate up a little bit?
Definitely. I don't think there was anything really Latifi can do, unfortunately. It's not like he's trying to do anything, but what a finish. Honestly, I'm still not over it. It was like last week.
It was absolute chaos. So we saw the crash on lap 53. Going on to lap 54, Lewis Hamilton makes the decision not to pit. Now Max is on, I think, 10 lap old hard tires. Lewis is on 25 lap old hard tires, and he's been complaining that these aren't going to last to the end of the race. Is that I mean, obviously, without trying to look too much at hindsight, should Mercedes have pitted? Zieger?
So it's like Red Bull pitted first. I think and I think like Mercedes could have pitted second if they wanted to, but for some reason they chose not to. And if they and with both of them on fresh tires, like it could have been like a thrilling finale. Instead the finale end up becoming one-sided with Max, because Max had the fresher set of tires, whereas Lewis didn't.
All right, I'm going to throw a difficult question for you, Tom. Is it better to lose as it did with Lewis ahead, but with like significantly worse tires, and where the chances of him winning were technically there, but it would require something we've never seen before in F1? Or is it better to lose where Mercedes pull into the pit, come out behind Max Verstappen, who maybe doesn't pit or has fresher tires on, and then the race finishes under safety car?
I would say it's worse to lose the way they did, because I don't think there's any way of predicting what had happened. So it would hurt more in the Mercedes garage, because if Max, having been behind, will have been told to just do the opposite of what Lewis does. So if Lewis pits under the safety car, Max will stay out, and vice versa, as it played out. And what that means is that if it does finish under the safety car and Lewis has pitted and Max hasn't, then they've lost it, and it's their own strategy call. Whereas this one, they made the right strategy call by staying out, because you would expect either a red flag or it to finish under the safety car. But the way it was handled meant that they were sitting ducks on the last lap, and there's not a lot they could really have done about it, to be honest.
Yeah, a shame for them, but we've got to talk about, I think, the FIA shenanigans. I don't know how else to put it, but on lap 56, 2 laps to the end, Michael Massey says no lapped cars will be allowed to unlap themselves. And oh my goodness, that started one of the biggest wars of words we have ever heard over the radio. I can't remember how many messages came in saying all sorts of things. But why do you reckon, in the first place, the initial decision was that they weren't going to let them overtake Chinmay?
I think probably it was just cutting it way too close, because at the end of the day, both Michael Massey and all the teams, they all wanted to end the race under the green flag, and I felt that I think it just felt that if they allowed the lap cars to overtake, then it wouldn't give enough time for a racing lap to occur at the end. So I think that's what was the initial reaction, because at the end of the day, the 53 correct, Latifi's DNF that occurred in 53 was only 5 laps towards the end, and it did take a little while to obviously clear the car, clear all the debris, and then obviously make sure the truck was all safe and all ready to go. So I think it was just all under pressure, just last minute decisions, and just like making sure that they could get a racing lap at least or two right at the end. I think that was the main reason to begin with.
Yeah, and then we saw on lap 57 things change around. The time between being told that they could overtake and the safety car ending was really short, Tom, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. I think they really needed to make a decision earlier than they did. Otherwise, you can't make the decision, I don't think. Because at the point they made it, the choice was then let some of the lap cars through or don't let any of them through, and you couldn't let them all through because there wouldn't have been time to go racing, really. I think there should have been a red flag, but that's besides the point, really.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's quite beside the point. I think it's worth looking at those alternatives because we can see so much of what Michael Massey is providing to these guys. We got the chance to say, here's what you should have done better. And of course, with 4 days to dissect what was going on, we're going to do that. But with 3 or 4 minutes to decide and act, what was going on properly, then Michael Massey's under a little bit more pressure. Has he made a significant mistake there, Zieger? If he's had more time, would he change the way that he's done things, or was it just how he wanted it? Was it just that one lap to the end?
I feel like from what I've heard, like there were 2 options: was either to red flag it, or to continue continuation, but Max would have to overtake the lapped cars first before going to Lewis. And I felt like if Michael Massey wants to give more time, then he should have red flagged it and then used that Imola situation. You remember Imola when all the lap cars had to do one lap just so that they're all on equal just so that the field can get bunched together. For me, if Michael Massey wanted a bit of time, he should have just red flagged it, and then all the lap cars would be on same grid so that we can see Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton racing side by side in the last 2 laps. Or he could just or he could have just let the racing go a lap early, so that Max would have to negotiate through the lapped cars to have a chance of overtaking Lewis, because I'm sure all these lap cars would have blue flashing signs on their steering wheels or something.
Yeah, what do you reckon would have happened if he did have to overtake those lap cars? There were 5 in total between the 2 title contenders. Would that have been a bit more fair? Because I mean, realistically, Max is going to win 99 times out of 100 with those fresher tires. Is that the 50-50 situation that we needed, Chinmay?
Yeah, probably, to be fair. I mean, it's it's all the what ifs and all that stuff, all these auto scenarios, and just thinking about what could happen. I mean, it would have been much more interesting to see if Max could actually get to Lewis by overtaking 5-lap cars. I felt 5 might have been a stretch. Maybe if it was like 2 or 3, then it might have been really, really interesting. But then, yeah, maybe it could. I mean, it's just too difficult to think about. Really, I would say it's just how quickly could he clear those cars? Could he even get close to Lewis by the end of the second back straight? And it was just really, really tense, stuff like that.
It was tense. And away from the action, away from the things that we can't stop talking about for 4, 5, 6 days straight, we saw the safety car benefiting a couple of people that we might not have expected to benefit quite so much as well. A P3 for Carlos Sainz and a new record P4 for Yuki Tsunoda. Those two really benefiting off that and having good races as well, right, Tom?
Yeah, very impressive. They went very under the radar because of what was going on all around them and the championship fight. So people didn't notice until after the classification had come out that in fact they had gotten that high up. But fair play to Carlos, for instance. He's bagged P5 in the championship. He's got another podium of the season. He's 4th, I want to say. So he's had an incredible season. And Yuki, conversely, who hasn't had a particularly good season, P4 is that's a really solid result from him, and it does show that he is capable on his day, whether the safety car did benefit him or not.
Yeah, we've had something of a bit of a joke around Carlos Sainz podiums, and they always seem to happen at the worst possible times for him to get the attention that he deserves. How impressive have you found Carlos this season, Zieger?
For me, I think looking over Carlos, for him to him the way he finished as best of rest driver, that's good. For him to join Ferrari and just quickly adapt into that machinery, that is something else because this team is pretty much built on Charles Leclerc, but the one thing that is that Carlos that should be taken credit is Carlos's ability to finish on a consistent basis throughout the season. Looking at Carlos's results, he's been scoring on the points since the Styrian Grand Prix, which just shows you how crazy that run is, and I don't think anyone's been able to match Carlos's run ever since. So credit is where credit is due, for not just finishing best of the rest, but for having but for getting into that Ferrari and just go heads down. I've got to do my job, and from day one in Maranello, we hit our goals. And if you compare them to the other drivers who've joined new teams, like Daniel Ricciardo, Sergio Perez, they've not had as much luck adapting to the new machinery, but equally they've had their bright moments throughout the season. But Carlos Sainz is definitely he should be definitely the newcomer of the year, hands down.
Yeah, Pete. He's finished in the points in 20 of the 22 races, and he's finished every single race this season, which I think probably makes him the only driver to do that. I'm not sure. Have you got anything else to add to that, Chinmay? Anything else that impressed you?
No, it's just Carlos Sainz is criminally underrated. That's all I've got to add. He's just criminally underrated, in my opinion. It's just how consistent he is, and it's just how consistent he's been. The way he's barely put a foot wrong. I would say the only problem mistake he's made this year was qualifying in Saudi Arabia. But other than that, when it mattered most, he's performed for Ferrari, and you can say that more times than what Charles has done this year.
Yeah, I mean we've seen some misfortune for Charles Leclerc, especially when you think of Monaco. But overall, is that enough to tilt the balance in his favour? I mean, let's talk about the championship now, because we've had it kind of floated around in the background, but P5 in the Drivers' Championship was up for grabs between the two Ferrari drivers and Lando Norris all through the weekend, and it ended up going Sainz's way. Is that probably where you'd have expected it to go, or like? Is that a fair result, Tom?
I think if you look at the first half of the season, then Lando was absolutely cruising, and he was up on the podium several times in the first half. But then since probably the midway point, McLaren really have started dropping off, or conversely Ferrari have started pulling up, one of the two. But it gets to the point where we're in the last race of the season, and you're kind of not expecting Lando to get that P5 in the championship anymore, which is a real shame for him. But then he sticks it on the second row, and you're thinking, maybe he is gonna get the P5. But at the end of the day, Carlos has been so consistent this year that it is a deserved result for him.
Yeah, I've just had a quick look as well, and he is the only driver to finish every race that he started this season, except for obviously Robert Kubica, who started just 2 races. But there was one driver who didn't finish the race who we might have really liked to. And we would have liked to see him on the podium as well. Kimi Raikkonen, who spent almost 20 years since his in Formula One, that couple-year break. It's going to be sad to see him go, isn't it, Chinmay?
Oh yeah, I think there is definitely going to be a missing aura in the paddock next year without the presence of Kimi. I won't lie, Kimi is my favourite driver, and I think that's just because of the fact that he didn't care. He was there to race, and he had such a genuine personality on the grid that everybody else respected so much. And I think it's just the genuine amount of respect people have for Kimi Raikkonen because of his on-track performances, because of what he's capable of and what he's achieved, and also just that personality, just I don't care personality. He's like, I'm just going to do what I want. At least he can be left alone now with his family, which is really nice for him, I suppose.
Yeah, he really is. He has got that unique personality. Anything to add to that, Zieger?
Tell you what, the moment he retired, he should have just hired a yacht. He should have gone to a yacht he hired in Abu Dhabi and just partied there.
Yeah, throwback to that famous Monaco incident where he crashed out during the race and then walked onto and climbed onto his yacht. And much like that day, not so available for interviews at the end of the race. He was voted driver of the day, perhaps perhaps taking it from someone who might have deserved it more. But the two, we don't care. We love Kimi, right? Would you like to see that interview at the end, Tom?
I would, yeah. Him cruising around in his car, trying to enjoy the fact that he's about to have time on his own with his family, and then he gets some reporter over his intercom. Yeah, I don't think he would have given any more answers than he normally does, and I love him for it.
Yeah, we've seen in the last few years, Abu Dhabi's been a place where the drivers have given those fond farewells, especially if I think Vettel, that was a particularly emotional one to the Ferrari members, but we were somewhat robbed of that, both by the fact that he was unfortunately retired from the race early, and also by the fact that we had a crazy championship battle. We didn't see so much of that, but we have seen, I think, a little bit of cool down from other drivers in the last couple of days. I remember on Kimi's Instagram, he's got retired written on there already. I think he was waiting. He was on his phone at the end of the race. I'm sure trying to get that in there as soon as possible. And we've seen some other news as well in the last week. I've got the graphic up, so I might as well press the news button. In fact, has anyone got anything else to add about that race? I know it's we've got absolute chaos. I'll put the results up while we're here. But have I missed anything desperately important?
Just briefly, I mean, we touched on Kimi retiring and how sad that was, but it was a cruel race for retirements because Russell, Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, all leaving their teams at the end of this season, retired this race. Perez retired, having defended Hamilton like a lion. I just thought it was a bit sad, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also saw, always worth mentioning, Nikita Mazepin with COVID. Unfortunately, didn't even start the race, so the gods were kind of ushering people out as soon as they could. Let's talk about some of the news that we've had in the last week. Maybe it's not been the most important thing on our minds, but there has been a couple things. So yesterday, Lewis Hamilton became officially, finally, the Sir Lewis Hamilton since that announcement happened, knighted by Sir Charles. I believe the Queen's still ill, but that's nice for him as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think big for him to be not. I think the process of of getting knighted, I think since the COVID pandemic, it does take a long time because every member of the royals have a timetable that they have to strictly adhere to.
And we've also seen the young drivers test. Would you guys say you've been keeping up with that a little bit, or Chinmay?
Not really. No.
No, okay. All right, that's a shame. So, there was a lot of talk about the young drivers test at the end of last year because it was still called the young drivers test, and we had Alonso and Buemi and a lot of drivers who were less likely to come in. But we also saw the testing of mule cars, so it was a bit of a 50-50 this year. Williams unfortunately didn't build a new car that could take those 18-inch tires, but I just want to mention one thing quickly. Wheel caps. We kind of saw the white inside wheel rim, kind of Brawn reminiscent, but do you want to bring them back on the new 18-inch tires? Tom.
I think it'd be cool. I think it looks nice. I don't know. Like you said, it reminds me of the Brawn a little bit.
What are you going to say, Chinmay?
Oh no, I was just saying, yeah, it would have been nice, especially. I mean, I won't lie, I'm actually a bit of a fan of the Brawn GP livery. I mean, it was obviously it wasn't the most decorated with sponsors because of the nature of how quickly the team was built up. But yeah, I really like that sort of simplicity. That whole white livery was just really nice, and yeah, the whole white wheels would look nice on the cars.
And McLaren ran some LEDs in theirs as well. I'm done pushing my agenda now. Any news I've missed? I don't think so. Which leads us on to the final segment, and it doesn't feel like we should be getting onto this quite so soon, but we got to do predictions. So who was here last week?
I was.
Yeah, and Tom and Zieger, you weren't, right? You haven't heard the predictions.
I don't think so.
All right, so you guys are going to have to be our judges then. Just so you're aware, the score is Warwick F1 Society 4, Raw Sport 3. Sorry, the other way around. Raw Sport are winning. So we've got to even this up. So you're going to have to pick the right one. I'll try and be as unbiased as possible. And I'm going to flip a coin. And we'll see whether Raw Sport or Warwick F1 Society get to go first. But I'm going to give you our predictions, the 3 podiums, the 3 random ones from Abu Dhabi, and then you tell me who did the best job. So that is all right. Group 1, they predicted a Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc podium. They predicted a red flag in the main race, which didn't happen. A Mercedes or a Red Bull crashes in either the qualifying or the race, which didn't happen. And then they predicted 5th and 6th in the championship for the Ferrari drivers, which they were partially correct, with Sainz claiming P5. But if I remember correctly, Norris was P6 in the championship, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's only a 1 point difference between Norris and Leclerc and P6 and 7 as well. So it was actually really close between the lot.
Okay. So there's that one, which, I mean, the podium, they had Hamilton and Verstappen on it the wrong way round. And then, yeah, the other one's a bit there. And then there's the other one. So, like, prediction set 2 was Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. So, again, Hamilton and Verstappen there, not even, like, swap round this time. Norris finishes P5 in the championship, which he didn't. Tsunoda scored points, which he did. He scored the most amount of points this season. And then Fernando Alonso scoring the fastest lap, which I think went to Max Verstappen in the end, right?
That went to Max Verstappen. So far, Group 2's doing a better job than Group 1.
Yeah, it seems like the slightly different podium probably favours the Group 1, and then the Tsunoda points for Team 2, and also like how brave those decisions were. What do you reckon, Tom?
Which group was the red flag?
That was Team 1.
Right, because I was going to say I think Team 1 has edged it for me because the podium's more correct, and there should have been a red flag, and a P5 and P6 for the Ferraris is half right. So I want to say Group 1.
What do you reckon, Zieger? You still think 2? You're gonna have to decide between yourselves.
I think I'm gonna say I'm gonna give the favors to Group 2 simply because one of their prediction was the most accurate.
Okay,
I'm happy to concede that if you wanna go Group 2, I'm all right with that.
Is that you're both happy? You're both locked in?
Yeah, I'm locked into Group 2.
All right with that. It's that was Warwick F1 Society's predictions. So you've made it 4-all. We didn't have we didn't have a forfeit on the season in the end. We started too late, but it is 4-all after 8 races of shows. After how many weeks? I don't know. It is all even, which I think is. I'll take it in the end. What do you reckon, Chinmay? Did you think you were going to edge it right at the end there?
Probably, but yeah, I think it was close. So these predictions slightly was a little close.
Yeah, I think my predictions at Jeddah were so far off. But I will happily take the draw. There is no winners here. You'll have to make sure that you stay tuned for next year when we do that. We don't have any predictions to make for next race either because we don't have a next race, or at least not for a whole 3-4 months. How are you looking forward to the next season, Chinmay?
Oh yeah, I'm 100% looking forward. I just want to see the cost caps, the new cars. I just want to see who comes out in front next year. And also just some of the driver pairings will be really fun to see, especially Hamilton, Russell, Sainz, Leclerc Part 2. Also see what happens. Seeing Ricardo and Norris have a much more even fight next year. And then, yeah, it'd just be a lot more interesting to see who comes up on top next year.
What do you reckon, Zieger? What are you looking forward to?
So I think like so this is what I think about next year. I think McLaren and Ferrari they're gonna revive the legendary battle that they had in the 70s. Because both of them like they were not in the championship running, so they had time to develop the 2022 car. Well, especially Ferrari, given the amount of CFD time, CFD and wind tunnel time they were allowed in Maranello. So for me, like I think the early part of the season, like I think Ferrari and McLaren could like revive their legendary battles from the 70s. Mercedes and Red Bull will probably be playing catch up, considering considering they invested a lot of their time in the on the 2021 championship. But for me, I think like it's going to be interesting to see how Lewis and Russell pan out. I could definitely see George Russell doing what Lewis did to Fernando Alonso when he made his debut for McLaren. And as for Sainz for next year, I definitely think he could get that he could get a contract extension for Ferrari, because the original plan was Ferrari brings Sainz in, and then at the end of the contract, Mick Schumacher comes in. But I feel like Mick Schumacher isn't quite yet ready for that step up into Scuderia. I think he needs like one or two more years before he can step into that. Before Ferrari can have that Schumacher name back in the Ferrari car.
Yeah, what do you reckon? Do you reckon Williams can step up, make it a full 70s/80s battle, or not?
I think for the Williams drivers, they've got like they're still in the rebuilding process, so they haven't got something to prove for. So for Williams, all that matters is just getting those points for now, and just and with that pairing like Alex Albon and Nicholas Latifi, I think they could be a good pairing. They could I think they could get some decent hauls for William for next year, considering like the amount, because don't forget Williams finished last in the championship, so they definitely
Haas is there as well. Don't worry.
No, I mean in 2020. So they definitely did get a lot of wind tunnel and CFD time, and with this year's finishing, like they've got a healthy budget. So I think like for Williams, they are looking on the they're currently looking on the up, but I can't. But I think it's still a long way off until those glory days are back.
What are you looking most forward to, Tom?
What I'm looking forward to, and this might be a little optimistic, is like a four-way championship fight between McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, and that it's not gonna pan out that way. But if it could be like that, then you've probably got a championship fight between Russell, Hamilton, Verstappen, Norris, Sainz, Leclerc. We're looking at 2010-esque championship battles if that pans out the way it does. But I think it could be quite a boring year for AlphaTauri and for Williams, because I just think that the top four are going to pull away, and that midfield battle is going to be relatively boring.
Well, thank you guys. It's been an absolute pleasure to do this podcast and all the ones we've done throughout the year with you guys. Thank you for Chinmay for coming on 8, 9, 10 times throughout the year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom, for coming on as well. We'll get you proper regular.
You're very welcome.
And thank you, Zieger, of course. First time ever coming on online. It can't be easy. Thank you as well.
Yeah, no worries, man. Hope it went well, and what a good year, good end to the year with the predictions.
Yeah, it has been a good end to the year. Thank you guys for watching. We'll make sure that we bring you plenty more after the summer break. We'll be having a massive season review. We'll get as many people on as we can. We'll take a look back at Kimi Raikkonen's career. We'll take some season previews. Don't worry, the content isn't going anywhere despite the fact that the racing has stopped. Until then, of course, you can go back, look at our previous podcasts on YouTube. Make sure you stick around, get in the Discord, stay active. We're going to keep our community rolling until the start of the 2022 season new regulations, new championship, same old battle, I reckon, is going to happen. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.